Manhood, brought to you in part by Solomon's Bespoke. Manhood, brought to you in part by Reboot Sports Drink.
Welcome to another conversation here on Manhood. Today's topic is a very interesting one. You know, we do it every day, or whether we think about it, whether we are cognizant of our actions. But the point is, it happens. One way or the other, it's what we consider our fashion, how we groom ourselves, and our hygiene. Sometimes we are aware of it, and sometimes we're not, but others certainly are. So, topic: fashion, hygiene, men's grooming, all as it pertains to men and manhood. To my right, Johanse Ayodike, behavior change consultant. To his right, Garth Voze, men's advocate and entrepreneur. And to his right, Sarius Gishad, radio presenter here at Guardian Media. So we're really happy to have all of you here, gents. Everybody has their own styles, their own ways of expressing themselves, and that's fine. But then, you know, so that comes down to fashion, as long as it doesn't offend, or if it offends, as long, you know, it depends on the community which you reside in, or where you decide to be fashionable in. But then it comes down to things like hygiene, and grooming. You know, again, but grooming is all still about appearance. But when we start to look at hygiene now, that's now where it literally could affect somebody else in your environment. So what do we take away from our understanding from fashion, hygiene, grooming, all encompassing into men's expression?
I would say generally, right? You all could correct me if you think I'm wrong. Generally, in society, men view that having less of a hygiene than women in general. And sometimes it can even be praised in some circles, you know, you smell like a man. If you understand what I'm saying here, a man don't need to put on all that lotion, right? A man don't need to do this, don't need to do that. So I think it's an important topic because I've learned that through the years, and the ironic thing is mostly with my interactions with women and in relationships where, you know, a woman will say, you're not taking care of yourself. And at first I was a kind of resistant, you know, you're trying to soften me up, right? But I realized even something simple as putting on lotion, right? You know, I don't really like how dry skin does look, but I never really had a regime or a thing, you know, make sure just if I happen to get some cream, I'll put on. But I realized it's important. Just something simple, something simple as putting lotion on your hand. The basics my parents did, which is how often you should bathe, brush your teeth, exactly groom your hair, and when I got beard, learn to groom my beard. That's the basics. But the other little things that taught us a little too frou-frou. At those times.
So because when you grab me lotion, you grab it from your sister.
Most times.
Correct. No, but you're right. But you know, let us determine the difference. And God, this is where you have expertise in, as well as being a man, but expertise in the next generation, the outlook of skincare, men taking care of themselves, and the differences between health and safety and pleasantries. So there's health in terms of and safety with regards to making sure, you know, men who don't like to put on sun lotion, sun cream, you know, cream in your skin, all of these different things. It depends on the environment which you're working in, you know, health, you know, brushing your teeth, grooming yourself, all these things are part of health. So, I mean, yes, it could result in smells and things that are unpleasant, but the bottom line, when we come down to the foundation, the core, is health and safety. And then you have things like cologne and even that, as we delve further into this conversation, where they're now saying that those things are unhealthy for you by spraying these toxic things onto your skin.
So, you know, you talk about the health part of it, and you talk about something that sunscreen, as simple as sunscreen. Growing up in the Caribbean, you don't really hear about sunscreen, right? You go to the pool, go to the beach, you're like, I'm going to the beach. It's only when you kind of travel outside and you kind of see, or you do some research, like I like to research stuff, that regardless of the color or the type of skin, you need the sunscreen because of the fact that if you're outside a lot, and we're outside a lot, if I go and play football in the street, right, you're outside in the sun. And I think that's one of the things that now you have, you know, like my son is in that age where now he understanding that, hey, this will, one, make me look better later on, right? Because now you're taking care of the skin. So you talk about frou-frou, right? Yeah, because I would have to grab my sister lotion. Whereas now, full circle, now we're trying to come up with things for men to use where it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole skincare routine. But
Right.
even simple as the sunscreen, one of the things that we didn't learn growing up. We outside in the sun, you ain't outside in the sun. With the bald head, can't be outside in the sun too long.
That's it.
Now
you know.
without some sunscreen.
And the only thing you're worried about at that point is the sunburn.
Yeah.
But other than that, you're not looking at the effects of, skin cancers, other types of ailments resulting in that. There's also, with regards to people thinking that, because of my pigmentation, I good,
Yeah.
you know. And then there are even things in the PF of a lot of these sunscreens, where they say, I think it's over 50 really doesn't make any sense. But it's prevention rather than cure.
Yeah.
But those regimes, as we come back to, so again, these are the needs of, men and women, once you're human, to take those sort of considerations. And that awareness needs to be put out there more, that regardless of your pigmentation, you need to ensure that you're protecting yourself, again, one from sun, other health benefits, for example, as we spoke about brushing your teeth and these things. But outside of that, right, there's also, as you mentioned, a regime. Men are now, which should have been there all the time, mani-pedis, facials, and it's not necessarily just in the business you're in. My 20 plus years as a presenter and, being an anchor, etc. That was par for the course.
Yeah.
That you had to take care of your skin. You want to go, there were no crusty feet and your nails with your skin showing and you
Right.
there's a lot of elements, and yes, there's an element of makeup that you wear. I still, as I mentioned, put a little dye in the beard, only because it's halfway white and halfway black, like a sort of
Yin and yang.
101 Dalmatians type thing, yin and yang.
Yes.
So there are things that, in my case, it is par for the course, but you're seeing more and more men now, and I'm using the word, taking care of themselves.
Yeah, if you look at things like skin serum, that at some point I wouldn't even know about it until now. You kind of see that as part of the routine, right? You talk about like the makeup and stuff. It was a particular type of person that would know about that. So we went to modeling school in Atlanta for a couple of years. They show you how to cut hair, how to put on makeup, how to put on powder on your face the right way. Things that I would not have thought about if I was in that space. So now you're looking at people who are not in that space. How do we educate them on these things that would, one, give them a better visual look? Because that's what it is about, right? Especially with skincare and stuff like this is over time. Like you talk about sunburn. Sunburn, I think, is to the point where we look at it as it was a normal thing. But it actually is not. You're talking about the skin being burnt by the sun, literally. If you think about that aspect alone, how damaging is that to the skin?
Long term, yeah.
So Zaraz, you are the youngest member here at this moment, and we know that the Gen Zs and then of course the even younger generation, the Gen Alphas, of course one generation teaches the other, are not really, and again this is my perception, are not really focused specifically on fashion, but more on expression.
Well, I mean that's a deep hole to dive into. I think especially in 2024 now, where fashion and expression is kind of tied to your identity and sometimes even your sexuality. It's a lot to do with for instance, I'll say it in plain. There's persons who prefer a very simple presentation in terms of we're very functional. You want to wear a shirt that fits, pants that
Black
fit.
shirt, denim pant.
Correct.
Yeah.
And shoes that are comfortable, depending on the job that you do. And there are other persons, male or female, where they choose to express in a more flamboyant manner, where it's sometimes the brightest shirts that you can find, sometimes it's the brightest pants, sometimes it's haircuts that are out there, in for lack of a better term, or sometimes it's hair dyed to an unnatural length, and it falls into that category of expressing yourself in whatever manner you find necessary, because I think my generation has grown up seeing a lot of people who are not afraid in any arena, in any demographic, no matter where they are, to express their true selves, no matter the consequences in that regard.
So when you say so part of that is living your truth, and we always talk about that, Johan, say about living your truth, and but perception is perception. What when they express themselves, right? The perception, I might look at that and say, but that's weird, You understand? Because I don't like that. That's not my fashion. That's not my statement. But somebody else, to someone else, that's normal. So, we have this discussion all the time where, some people say I identify as a unicorn. Now, to me and my circles and how I grew up, I think, what madness you talking about there, right? But to the next generation and to person I've spoken to,
that's average almost.
They're just like, what's wrong with that? They express themselves. They don't see an issue with it. Yeah. But I am my emotional intelligence and my maturity is now more open to respect for what you believe in. It mightn't be what I believe in, but I respect you enough to say if that's the way you want to go, what you want to say or how you want to express yourself, so be it. As long as it doesn't affect me in a negative manner where I can't remove myself, because there's a difference. It can affect you and you can choose to remove yourself, but you can also choose, if you choose to be in that moment and it's not really a deal breaker, then, if you want to zog half your head, and paint it blue and have, I don't know, half a soft drink can swinging from your ear, does you?
Hasn't that always been something since the beginning of time in terms of a clash of generations?
Agreed.
Because the generation that is 20, 50, sometimes 60 years older than your generation would have said the same thing when you were our age or when you were younger than us. You would have said they would have said certain things about what you all were doing at the time was, in your own words, weird or just maybe you're not ready for that yet, or it doesn't make sense. I don't understand it.
Well, I remember the first time I pierced my ears. My father looked at me and was like, called me a couple names, and to me it was like, listen, you don't understand how much gills are you gonna get now?
Yeah.
Your father called you something. My father say, okay, all right, he gonna start seeing the earrings now, He gonna start taking the earrings now. That's all he said to me. That was it. And I was the first time I pierced one side. I went back and pierced the other side too.
Right.
I think to touch on what you said there, a lot of the generational stuff where you say every generation has those type of people, right? If you go back to the generations that we had before, like my dad and before that, a lot of them were not as exposed as we are. So you're more open to it. I am more open to it and more trying to understand, okay, well, maybe it's all different, but they had hippies. They had all these different types of people.
Right.
So maybe because of the generations that have been there, you have one generation. When we look at that generation, which is your generation, we're more open-minded because we're more expanded. Our mind has been expanded more. We have more access to see more of the differences. Whereas if I'm in a community, everybody in my community is all that it is. Yeah. Like I always tell my son, traveling is the main thing. So from 2 years old, you're traveling because I need you to see other people.
Correct.
Have conversations. Realize this music is not the only music. So I think that's what bridges the gap a little bit better now because we're more open to understanding, okay, well, maybe have something to, maybe the Coca-Cola thing or whatever in your ears is a thing.
No man is a...
As men, especially as men, it's important. Mm-hmm. It's important not to live life in a linear, myopic manner. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to style really, the sky is the limit, Because I remember when I was in secondary school, wearing big pants was a thing, right? I remember you getting 2.5 yards of cloth, right, to make up pants. But I remember I had one guy in secondary school, his pants was always, I wouldn't say it's tight, but it's always fitted. And he used to get real talk for it. But the thing is, he kept that style, no matter what. That was his style. So when the big pants went out and the small pants come back in, he was already trending.
Yeah, so now he get more girls.
Right.
But you might find that now he want to change to something else because he want to stand out.
Yeah, it was individuality.
If you want to be a leader, always go in the opposite direction.
Which is fine. And I think that's the important part of being men. First, to have the courage enough to be able to dress, look, take care of ourselves in a way that is in accordance to us. I'm not saying us. Yeah. I'm not trying to be like you or you or you, right. But I'm making sure and find the way to take care of myself.
So do you think that and as you talk about men, do you think that allows or makes men a little bit more isolated, the ones that think like that? Because I feel as though sometimes so I don't drink, so I don't really go out, right? Because most of my friends drink. So I really wouldn't go out. If it's something to do like a function, I'll do that. But do you think that when you have that stance, it isolates you from the majority of men?
It can, depending on your circle, and it also depends how you deal with it, right? Because I don't drink alcohol either.
Your circle is important.
But when I go to
that's
the
what
restaurant,
I want to touch on,
when I go to the restaurant, I ask for coconut water, but in a wine glass. right? If you understand what I'm
Once
saying.
they have
Yeah,
food
yeah.
out there.
So it's still make it.
So it depends your circle, because you can still hang with your friends on the occasions they're going to dinners and so on. But if your circle is a circle of people always liming, then the obvious is choose a different circle, because your community, you involve yourself in the community of where you want to be.
Yeah, it's your
and
tribe.
what you want, and your tribe.
Yeah.
So if for example, I don't really drink myself. I drink maybe on a social, for maybe one a social interaction, because the nature of Trinidad and Tobago is where you're drinking. So I might take one, and every now and again I might feel for maybe two. But the majority of the time, I'm not. If I'm going to a house lime, I don't feel the need to drink.
Right.
But exactly that. The same friends and family at a house line, or we're going out for a meal where I don't have to have a glass of wine because we're eating, we're doing other things, we're having other occasions. But I wanted to say that, and to bring it back to hygiene and apart from the health and safety side of things, that is also cultural, because you talk about traveling. Now, I'm not calling any names, but there are countries that you can go to, and what may be considered in Trinidad and Tobago stink, right? To them, it's natural, the pheromones, etc., or not doing certain things, not using certain products.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they were called certain people hippies as a result of not wanting to use certain things, or growing hairs in particular areas, or not grooming. And things change. People in certain circumstances evolve. Certain people are still doing those things.
Correct.
And does it come down, you answer, then to horses for courses?
Well, again, every man to his own order, right? I remember I went to school in the US, and during winter time, most people didn't bathe at all, right? Or bathe, they probably bathe every 2-3 days, something like
Yeah.
that, and that was the norm. But I don't know anything about that,
Yeah.
whether it's cold or not, right?
Shower has to have.
I had to find myself. I take a bathe, if you understand. So, but that's mild, and they thought, well, I remember my roommate thought, well, he's Mr. Clean, and they thinking, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, but
That's how you grew up.
But I'd say that would be a cultural thing for you too,
That's how I
because
grew up.
here, that's
So-
part of it.
So that we need to take a short break, but I'll give you a story when we come back from the break. We talk about fashion, hygiene, grooming here at Manhood.
Hi guys, welcome back to Manhood. We're talking about hygiene. We're talking about fashion. I know Rob had a story before we went to break, so I definitely want to hear the story, because you had me laughing. I want to know what it is about.
I started to laugh just thinking about it, because as Johan said it, so it's one, a story, and two, it's the fact that I myself was guilty. Because when you're in Trinidad, of course, climate, weather plays a big, temperature plays a big role in, Trinidad. You could easily bathe 2-3 times a day, right? Sometimes more, depending on what your job role is or where you're at, to cool down. But when you're in some of these countries, like for example, when I studied in Germany, there was, it's bitter cold. So I went there thinking, that's real stink, boy. You all ain't bathing in 3-4 days. And when you get your first taste of that winter, right? That you then start to understand that, okay, maybe bathing right now isn't the right thing to do, because you're leaving your dorm, you're going down the corridor, and even though the windows are closed, it's cold.
The floor is cold still, yeah.
The floor, everything is cold, because you're watching the pennies, the Deutschmark in this case, and you don't want, well, now the euros, but it was Deutschmark then, and you're saying to yourself that the whole place isn't heated. So when you put on the hot water, and all of these factors take place. So I did find myself, full confession, bathing every other day in certain circumstances. Now, of course, when summer came around, it was a bit different. But what I couldn't deal with is sometimes that's what he's saying. If you look at the history of the saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, it would have been in the medieval times or times where people would share a bathtub, right? And then, of course, if you're not the first, every time somebody go in, of course, that water gets dirtier and dirtier. And it was ironic that I had done some research on where some of these sayings that I used to hear my parents talk about. And so to experience that there where I would hear the student came to me one day and said, I left the water there for you. So I told them they ran a bath for me or they left a
But
bucket.
they leave the water itself.
They left the water, brother.
Yeah.
They left the water that they now bathe in there for me. So I was like,
That's a culture shock right there.
hell no. And I drained it. But at the same time, you'd go to saunas or baths and it was unisex. Everybody's there practically nude, and that's part of their culture. But I'm just saying to the fact that in that grooming sense, I understood that, when people say don't bathe every day, I know to some people probably listening to say, hey, that's still nasty. But it's, don't
you notice
don't
it,
knock
though?
it.
Did you?
until-
Because, naturally, when down here in the Caribbean, you feel it. Like, there's a feeling of almost feeling, to say maybe the word is grimy.
Exactly.
After a certain amount of time has passed.
Yeah.
In that cold weather, you notice it more.
You're not feeling grimy,
No, I
buddy.
didn't feel it. But I know it was programming because I used to laugh at myself sometimes saying, not really, you don't really need to bathe. But you hear your mother
Agreed.
in the back of your
I
head.
feel funny, like to say I'm bathed today, it
And
feels
that's what
funny
we're
now.
talking about. Culturally, it's a conditioning, right? Culturally, that's what you're used to. So you talk about the grimy feeling here, how hot it would be here. So I live both East Coast, West Coast. Sometimes when it's cold, you're like, oh, I guess I could go fall asleep first. But you're conditioned to
I
know
was
it's at
talking
bed,
about
right?
New York here in
Right,
particular,
yeah. So
and New York weather.
So West Coast now, we're talking about LA, West Coast side where it have deserts.
Right.
It's hot. It's 110 degrees. So there, you want to be, you want to live in the pool. So like you said, it is a conditioning and a programming because we're so used to that here.
Yeah.
And I think for men in different cultures, it will be different. I think the main thing with that is like now you have society making it a point to showcase more grooming for men. Most of your celebrities are more grooming. The young and older are not grooming. You look at people like celebrities that have aged well. What's the first thing you do? All of them on a commercial for a serum.
Yeah. Tom Cruise at almost 60 years old.
Brad
Agreed.
Pitt.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just looking at people who you were watching when you growing up or who you see in movies and you watching what they've done. As usual, the society telling you, hey, this is what you're supposed to do.
And taking care of themselves. I mean, we can talk. So what I want us to do as we continue to have that conversation, there's two aspects that really pertain to or relate to manhood in particular, where they always tell you one, dress for the job that you want, right? So how people feel when they have a haircut, for example, how they groom themselves. I'm seeing all these beard groomings going on and people dying and filling in all the blanks to have the perfect beard, dressing a particular way, as opposed to, so as you mentioned about when you talk about simplicity, the difference in someone dressing, I just put on our old pants and our Crocs and going out. And then that person, when they put on a nice suit, how they feel about themselves, how they comport themselves at that point really does make a difference. So I wanted us to have a further conversation on that, as well as our outlook as men when we're taking care of ourselves, like going to the gym, doing different things, and women, or in certain cases, letting yourself go, where you have terms like the dad bod now, and how women view it, but also how we view women who either don't take care of themselves or in some cases maybe take care of themselves too much, where we're now talking about plastic surgery and how we
I know
feel.
if that is taking care of yourself, but I hear what
So let's
we
talk
will
about
discuss.
it.
I think the role that women play in men's hygiene is underrated, because I think it's a 50-50, right? I think half of it is what your baseline comfort level of hygiene is. If you had no woman to influence you in your life or no woman to try and impress, I think your baseline is, well, my nails should probably be maybe once every 2 weeks, 3 weeks if I really have to see, the lady this week. How often you wash your hair, how often you go to the barber for a trim, or if you shave by yourself, or if you just rely on the barber exclusively. A lot of that has to do with a woman's influence, whether it's women that you're living with or women that you're trying to impress if you're out in the dating market and you're trying to court. I think that's a huge part of it, and it's every layer from hygiene to even just like jobs. It's a layer. I think, you know what I mean.
And Gart and Johan say, from persons one as a scientist of sorts with regard to the mental aspect of this thing that we discuss, and you, of course, Garth, in your experience as an entrepreneur and an advocate, that is this then a direct representation of how you feel about yourself or how you comport yourself or how you take care of yourself a direct correlation to what is going on mentally?
Yes, I would say that immediately because, there's nature and nurture, right? So nature is what we naturally born with, nurture is what our environment did to us. And traveling, and that's why I'm advocating again, people travel, go somewhere besides where you're from just to see something different. Because I remember, in Trinidad, most times we have home clothes. And most people home clothes don't really look that good. But when I went to school away, I carried some of my home clothes. And I remember immediately when I put it on and then looked to see everybody else dressed, nah boy, I can't dress. This was way below the standard because the clothes they would wear home was good clothes. It wasn't clothes they would wear to go out, but at least it had a fashion. Home clothes had a fashion and a style to it too. And the truth is, when I adopted this style, I felt better. Not just to blend in or to be part of it, but wearing things of quality felt different. And I remember thinking, this is a different thing. Not to say that I grew up poor or anything or starving, but that was just the culture, wearing old clothes or the clothes that you couldn't wear out anymore, home, versus getting a unique style. So I would say is a direct to the brain. And even last week on a segment I did on mental health matters, we spoke about old underwear, right? And we were talking about
With or without holes?
Well, with or without with the holy ones especially. And I was saying it was my experience first. I remember looking at Mona and like, it have a hole, and I thought, I said, why are you still wearing this? And my thought was because nobody's seeing it. And then when I asked around, the general consensus was nobody's seeing it. But you would wear a new suit, you would wear a nice suit, nice shoes, nice car, but nobody's seeing the underwear. And then I thought, well, why? Why you're okay with wearing something of low quality because somebody not seeing it? Are you dressing for others? Is it? And then I realized I had to hold myself to a higher standard. I'm not saying it have to be a $500 and $5,000 underwear now, But you hold yourself to a standard, whatever that standard is. As a man, I think all men should have a standard, where it is grooming, where it is fashion. Have that standard and then maintain.
So how your mother voice didn't come in your head at that point? Because wanna know all old people, our parents, grandparents, all of them had the same thing. You understand?
I feel like you know what I'm about to say.
Tell me.
About make sure you have on underwear because if something happens to you,
Yeah.
There you
take
go.
you. You see, this is what I want to tell you. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because that's what my mind thinking. But we go back into the look good, feel good thing, right? So come to people who take care of themselves in the gym, right? It's a look good, feel good thing. We live in a visual society, regardless of what we would want it to be or not, unless you remove yourself from society.
Matters.
Look matters, visual matters, grooming, hygiene, all that stuff matters. So that's more of a look good, feel good thing. So like you being exposed to the States and that type of standard, as you say, isn't that we have a lower standard? It's just that our standard is this. And I think that is one of the things that when people travel and they see different things, they start to now reflect on self. How, as a man, how do I carry myself? And you were saying something earlier about traveling. I've been traveling since I was 2 years old. And if it's not for football, it's for something else. And you see how people traveling these days? You see the standard that they have as men traveling these days? If it's a Crocs and some slippers and a joggers, and they could.
Pillow around
I had
their
to travel with soft pants or shoes and a shirt. This is years ago. So now you see all those things changing. And I think, yes, it is attached to the mental, like you were saying earlier. But I also think it's attached to a lot of them are trying to fit in. Because the majority of people are not traveling in the shirt and the pants. Right? A lot of people are traveling in Crocs.
Comfortable clothes, yeah.
Right.
And I think I disagree with that, I
Yeah.
disagree with, I think it should be some balance, let's say in between, which I know balance for most people, for all of us, something hard to find balance. Finding balance is easier said than done, but it's like, and I was going to say something that may be a little controversial here, right? When I look at older pictures, historical pictures, and even movies of what a gangster used to look like. Gangsters used to be in suits, right?
Feathered and cap.
Right, and then when I look at gangsters
Tailored
now
suits.
in
Tailored
Trinidad,
suits.
right, and you're in an old vest, you're in an old pants, right? To me, I'm not glorifying the criminals before, But style is style now.
But what did that represent, though? What did the tailor suit represent back in the day?
Wealth.
Prestige.
Prestige, wealth,
So
rank.
Rank.
Right. So guess what? We remove the prestige. We remove the wealth. We keep the rank. If I see the bad man in my community looking a certain type of way, that's what I follow. At that time, people were driving and people didn't have cars. The men who had the cars was the gangsters and they would shoot up a whole house. But they was dressed because they were the one making the money, regardless of what it was from. And they would carry themselves differently. One, because people from the time they see them, they know who they are. So you're identifying this individual as this person. These people are doing the same thing now. It's just switch. The generation switch, the mentality switch. Now they identifying themselves with the people who they see doing the same thing in the community that they're in from a different perspective. So I agree with you in terms of that's the most valid point you can make. I used to also look at them like, oh, that's a real tailored suit. I can't say when last I wear a suit unless I went to a function. And other than that, I'm very comfortable with
But I
traveling.
go and sound like a real old man now.
No, you will
You
sound
don't-
like a woman, but
don't
you have to say it.
whether you're sounding like one or not.
At the end of the day,
And I think, you see that old, because you see, standard boy, if it's standard going down,
No, but I
don't-
think it
can't
was a
advocate
level
for that.
of dressing for. I mean, when we talking about gangsters
job?
here, but it's dressing for the job you wanted
Yeah.
or for the people you wanted to emulate. Because again, the wealth in that time indicated good clothes, fancy car. Obviously, transition from horse carriages to now who had the brand new Ford, the brand new Cadillac.
I can hear the horn right now. Conk,
And
conk.
exactly.
Yeah.
So now it was that time of dressing for the job you wanted. Even if you weren't a high-ranking member in the organization, you had those aspirations that it's not just about the money. I want to have power. I want to have influence. I want to be a boss. So I'm looking like a boss even before I'm a boss.
But also, it's follow me. You're
That
dressing
too.
a particular way because you want to be like this. You want to be part. You want to have
to
what
get
I
this
have.
money?
You want to get this money. This is how you
Yeah.
have to look. And then there was a transition. I mean, I know by skipping a couple generations, there was a transition to the jumpsuit. More of the rapper type look with the Kangols and things like that. And then the big rope chain. And then now it's transition again. When you look at some of the artists, whether it be the Wiz Khalifas and so on, they're not dressing up in all this sort of fancy
But you
stuff.
can even skip past that too. You can look at places like LA where now a lot of these people are buying up these places to put IT people in and the AI people in, right?
Yeah.
What are the jobs now? You have to dress for the job, right? How do people dress for jobs in LA or San Francisco?
A lot
Most
of
of them
work
are
from home
Google
jobs.
jobs. So guess what? They dress in as comfortable as they would be in their
Agreed.
house in the dorm.
Agreed.
And that's
But-
where
but
the
we see
jobs now change. So they're literally doing the right thing because they dress for the job, whatever their job is. But it is all based on just identifying them in their own little tribe of people, and that's how it seemed to be. Now with the grooming part of it, I think like we didn't touch on that as much, but I think the grooming part of it has to do with self. I don't know if you agree with me. That's more or less as self. And as for men, I think regardless of how many generations we pass through, regardless of how many jobs we get, that's one thing I think is very, very important for self, because it also goes back to the look good, feel good. So I don't know if you agree with that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Because
We-
that was going with the quality. Because even though, so going back to the fashion and coming to the grooming, even though you're not dressing in a suit and you're dressing for the Google job, right? And there's an assumption because I wasn't there, but even if you're wearing a Crocs, let me just say, at least it don't have no hole in it now. It's not no old Crocs. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you're dressing in a short pants, right? It's not no old short pants. Then say it have to be the most expensive one. But at least have the style. And I look at every man. Every man have a different style. But I could tell it's not a t-shirt with a hole. It's not a shoes with a hole,
Right.
etc., etc.
But you said that. I know we need to go to a break. But there's a term again growing up that they used to use called Sunday best. Put on your Sunday best, and that also comes from I spent a lot of my younger age, the time that I was in Trinidad, in Blanchisseuse. So that more village life. And I would tell you that not everyone, I mean, your job, you're fishermen, you're farmers, you're different, there's also cocoa, there was sheep farming, there was all these different things. You're not going to put on your best clothing for that. You have overalls, etc., or your home clothes or your lineman clothes, etc. But on a Sunday, when you're getting prepared for Mass or the harvest or
Sunday
whatever
lunch, yeah.
Sunday lunch, you're dressing with your best clothing, right? And so even though you may say that pair of pants has a hole in it. It might be the only thing that you could afford, and it's worn, right? But is it clean? Is what it is. And that's the thing. So it's not always, if you can afford it and you decide to dress frumpy, and now you've seen all these pants with the tears and so on, and you've seen the wealthy doing that, so you know to themselves that that's an expensive pants that they've probably spent $2,000-$3,000 on for practically a torn pair of jeans and so on. But then the poorer population who that might be what they have. But as long as they've laundered it or they've found some way to keep it clean, there's always a river, a standpipe, something somewhere that allows you to be that. So I'm just saying that just to clarify that we don't want to judge anybody based on where they may be at as a status.
So I think before we go to break, however, you had a joke before about that same pants thing. I have a joke for you when we come back.
All right. So with that one, we go to the break.
Welcome back to Manhood. The topic of the day right now is hygiene, fashion, and a plethora of other things as well. Grooming as well. I know we had some jokes that you know, Gati wanted to tell a joke about pants.
Yeah. So Robert mentioned some pants there that they're paying lots of money for, right?
Right.
So the joke with that is that my dad used to watch them pants and be like, that same pants I'm paying so much money for, that was the one jeans I had for months now. And that thing just keep going on. He said, look at that, I should find it now and be back in style. So you see all those things come right back around because
circle.
The same pants that we're talking about with the cut-ups and thing.
Right.
Man say that and patch. When you used to patch your pants, he said, Washman, I go on the road, my Sunday best and my best, put a patch on it. So I think a lot of those things, but just coming right back. It's just coming right back. Like if you see a lot of the clothing coming back to the whole fashion part. But I really want to talk about grooming. And maybe it's because it's part of what I do too, the grooming part of it, right?
Some tips, anything,
I
want
to ask a couple questions too because, you know, we have the young man in the room. So do you think that, you talk about generations and stuff, do you think that this generation pays a lot more attention to their skin and grooming and just their appearance in general?
I think the line of communication between generations has opened. And that's largely in part to social media in terms of older gentlemen are not shying away from giving advice, and the forums there are many different forums for guys to sit down and pass generational knowledge about grooming down. So whether it's things that are new in the market or they're things that are old trade secrets, something as simple as, hey, use beard oil. It helps. It works. Even if it's, hey, I know your beard looking a little miscolored, so use this brand of dye. Or even pay attention to, okay, wash your face. Something that is something, it could be overlooked a lot, but it's something as simple as, hey, young brother, wash your face a little more, eat this, because if you eat this kind of food, you might break out a little more often, and it has an effect on how you perform on a daily basis, how your brain performs on a daily basis. All of that information is now there. So it's something that we started when we first started talking. We were talking about sunblock. The information is there, I think, for my generation. Everything is just there to grab. There. However, the point that I want to make is it's not always used. So, and that's where the older generation of, I would say, advisors come in, where you can advise a young man, 10, 15, 20 years old, to sit down and say, trust me when I tell you, you're going to think back 20 years from now, use the sunblock.
But with grooming itself, though, like the products and stuff they have out there now, I think you guys are using that a little bit more. Because, I mean, if you talk about generations, a lot of people, they need to use much products, right? But, like, the stuff that you see now, you think that this generation takes that a little bit more because it's on, like, social media, because there's a little bit more
influencers, I think, have a big role to play. Okay. We've seen a lot of influencers who are endorsing something as simple as cutting your own beard or trimming your own hair, and going in detail and saying, okay, this is where you can buy the mirrors and give yourself a fade. Give yourself some waves, right? Or something as simple as, plucking your eyebrows. We are a lot more, in my opinion, we are a lot more
manscaping. We don't have fucking eyebrows and things. That's our terminology.
When I was growing up,
manscaping.
And now it's widely accepted that, yeah, man, I know I had to go and do a facial. Now, granted, I think I'm still in that in-between generation where some things were deemed as quote-unquote cool and some things are deemed as quote-unquote girly. I guess I guess it depends on who you ask and what their personality is.
But not that. It depends on your audience. Like, for example, if you're not a public figure, and your community accepts that, and you're okay with that acceptance, and you don't really give a flying what somebody else thinks, then that's fine. But if you're a public figure, for example, like I said, being in this industry for 20 plus years, for years people thought I groomed I plucked my eyebrows, according to you, and I'm like, no, it's naturally my eyebrows. Now I would say, as I'm older, there's some strays and things happening there, and now if you look at me and you say, hey, do you clip one? Yeah, I have to know. But for many of those years, I didn't have to do those things, and I would say that even it depends on where you come from. It's how you put things forward. Because am I doing something for fashion, like beard oils and things like that, or am I doing it for a mixture of both, which is grooming is also part of healthy, like massage oils for the hair. We no longer have the follicles. We now have to put creams on our skin. Whether it smells good or not is irrelevant, because I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. But just to share a really quick story, I went to a couple of courses in Utah, and really where you try to get some inner strength and learn a bit more about yourself. And the final part of the course, they said, like for those who had beards and in locks and whatever the case may be, you had to cut it, right? Because you're holding on to those things. And I had a serious problem with that. I never really left. We all have beards here. I have my little goatee or Fu Manchu, as my brother says to me sometimes, going on. But it was me. I thought if I shaved it, I didn't like that particular look. Some people say egghead. Or you look like an egg if you have a totally clean face. All of these things were happening, and we were practically pushed into doing it, because you're showing that you're holding on to these things of the world. Which is when I started to think, am I drinking the Kool-Aid here? Is this some sort of cult thing as opposed to a really inner strength experience? But I'm sharing that to say that.
But that's a good experience, because that brought you back to inner self.
But I'm using that, Garth, to bring up to us, gentlemen, to have that conversation as to different strokes for different folks. To them, that was something that was, not unnecessary, and we're holding on to it, and it's all fake and faux, and whereas to us it's, how much are we holding on to it then? People who grow dreads, or people like us who shave our heads, are we shaving it because we want to shave our heads, or is it because, as they say, roof blow off? And now it's and now we
you have to adapt.
We have to adapt. So, it's all these things are happening. I would like to grow my hair and go to a barber again and feel what it's like, but
would you though?
That I don't know. But the truth is, God,
from one bald guy to another.
Yeah.
Would you want to grow your hair up?
So let's say this, right? The pain in my of having to shave my head every day, right? And the cost of the Gillette Fusion blades and all these other things like that. Sometimes I say, if I could just grow it out maybe a little bit, at least if I could do a 3-4 days go and just kind of let my hair down, so to speak, right? Pun intended. I would feel a bit better than the trauma of my head having to go through.
And I will politely disagree with that statement.
I want to hear your regime. I want to hear your regime.
I love my bald head. I think it took a while to get, there was times, when you're younger, you're in it, right? And then when I first shaved my head, I shaved my head for a movie I was supposed to be in Dallas for some years ago. And it was to be a footballer, a bald head, whatever. And I just felt like, wow, I don't have to get up and comb my hair, buy gel, do nothing. Nah, man. And it was already there. Gel, though, I ain't gonna lie. At that time. But once that happened, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll accept it. I was like, okay, cool, let's go. After that, I was good. And I don't mind, because for me now, shaving my head is self-care. Like, I take my time. Everything has to stop because I have to shave my head. And I utilize it as self-care.
You know what you're saying there? I realize when I learned to take care of myself, right? And I'm not perfect at it yet.
Well, no Sherlock.
It was a therapeutic process.
Yeah.
I realized that.
Yeah.
It was a therapeutic. Taking your time to do even when I grew up in bed first, and I learned about getting the special comb and
Yeah, and
oil
you-
and thing,
that's
and actually
self-care.
doing it myself, I was like, this feels good, right?
So,
and,
but-
and even doing
Your nails, watch man.
Your nails.
There's a
Manicure and
specific
pedicure,
day.
it feels
There's
good
a
going and
specific
do it.
day that I would take time and just shut everything off. I work maybe 24 hours a day, if you could think about it, doing a bunch of different things. But there's a time I take and I say, okay, cool, today, I shave my head, I cut my nails, I just relax. And you would not believe how much that of a reset that is for me. I mean, I would travel, I travel a lot, but even in the hotel, I would stop and do that. So it's a matter of self-care. So for me,
You're taking a moment for yourself.
you have to. And for me, I will utilize whatever moment that is. And the moment for me, it's to shave the head. When I go out, I don't have to worry about nothing. Come across here in the rain. If the rain fall, don't have to worry about my hair getting messed up. I in the place like normal.
So let's say, because I want you all to chime in here, Zaria. So I don't mean to cut you, but I just want you to add into this conversation. Because as you mentioned about self-care and taking that moment for yourself, some people want to be pampered because, you go and you go to, have a mani-pedi or a facial and all the different things and all the steaming and the hydrotherapy and all these different things. It feels good and you want to just relax. But what it bottom line it comes down to, apart from your parents thereafter, it's the moment for yourself that you're taking for yourself. Just like men take time for themselves, where women don't understand why they need toilet so long.
Right.
And you're sitting down on the bowl and really and truly, it's not taking that long to do your business, because the old people always tell you, don't get off the potty.
But it is that moment to yourself.
It's the moment to take your time, read a magazine, go on your phone, all of these different things, all of which are not... It's called going to the office. Now, it might be very hygienic when you think about it, going in there with your cell phone and somebody asks you to use your phone and things like that. But it comes down to that self-care and taking and ultimately wanting to take a moment for self.
I think that's important because many of us men, and we spoke about it in a previous episode, society sometimes views us as things. And sometimes we view ourselves as things. We just have to do and provide and protect, and we are not people. But self-care, help me. Listen, I'll give a funny story. You ever went and wax? You went and take a wax? Right?
I don't like how your hands is saying it now.
Because he went
different
from
smile on the face,
all you ever see the movie, all you ever went to the play, you all ever wax.
Yeah, and but
No,
it's
it went down.
wax,
You ever wax.
I went and take a full body wax. Right? Everything.
I just feel
What is that
uncomfortable.
like?
How was
Yeah.
that experience?
Everything.
I'm cringing into it
First,
already.
it was, and I've it recorded too because it was very funny. It was
Now
painful.
be specific. You say a full
everything,
body
everything
wax.
clean, everything clean, right? And I did it because
I know we
it-
share on the show, but I don't know about
Yeah,
it.
but-
Yeah, I feel like that was too much.
It was
Yeah.
a new experience. I always want to experience something once to see what it is. And the care after I had to do on my body, right? I realized I actually used to shower in a rough manner. I didn't even know that. How I used to it was rough versus how I was supposed to do it. And taking care of myself like that make me realize, I take a lot of things for granted. And doing the care, taking care of everything, I realize how therapeutic it is to really connect with yourself.
With a douche and all kind of thing, like the full...
But my main question is,
No, I mean, no, but...
would you do it again though?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You would. Were there any drawbacks to it from your perspective?
The waxing drawbacks was
The pain.
the only
The
thing
money.
is when you reach down to the family jewels now, right?
Right.
You have to be very careful with that. The person doing it have to take very, very much care. But other than that,
And the person was careful.
yeah. She was careful. But I would say
Oh, no, boy.
it's just an experience. What for me it was
Okay.
seeing different sides of myself.
Right.
Right? And I'm not telling any man you have to do it or don't do it, It's just like traveling. It's
Trying
doing
new
something
things.
different, to try new things. I remember first time I grew out my beard, right? Usually my beard used to be to my face. And then I grew it out. And I used to think that was old man things. Only old man have a long beard. And then long beard became fashionable. And then what it was about a few months ago, I shaved everything off,
Yeah.
right?
It was one of those things that... Yeah.
Complete change. I saw him. I saw
Like
him on
waxing.
Instagram.
Yeah, some
Wax
people,
his face.
some people, yeah.
Right.
Some people need to have a bit.
All right, well, I take it that. But it's just different things. And I say as
Yeah.
men, to see different sides of yourself, to know different things. I had low hair. I did waves where I was brushing my hair half an hour every day and getting
Right.
360 waves. Now I have a ras. It's different sides. And I'm not saying any style would be better than anything. But
Season 4, you coming with Bantu knots or whatever, Bantu knots.
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what I will do? Because, and as men, I think we should explore, because many of us, I remember before I met my wife, I used to wear blue suits, black suits. That is it. That had
Right.
those standard colors.
Now you're wearing different
Then
colors.
she had a little color and helped me understand. So now I could even put different things together for myself. So I think grooming, deciding what is best for you, because I know some men, they just take nail clip. I don't care if it straight
Fire
or not,
long or- yeah.
but I just need it low, and they feel comfortable
good,
like that.
So we almost again we had a close off. I mean, it's a really really good and rich conversation, and we almost come to that moment. But I really want to focus now on, because people are probably saying, okay, that's some good tips. We understand how men feel. We understand to an extent how women feel about it. I'm sharing some really good stories. But what about the factor that really, we say sometimes manners maketh a man, right? And in the same way, hygiene. Whether how your breath smelling, how your armpit smelling, how you're looking, as we mentioned about even the clean underwear, the reason for doing that. But when you go, it's like when you have a hired help coming in to help you. People say, clean up the place a little bit. Don't leave dishes in the sink for somebody to come and have to wash it. It's the same thing that if you go to a dentist, you don't just leave a set of, steak and old doubles and all kind of thing in your mouth. You brush your teeth. So let's talk a bit about hygiene. Very briefly, and to the relevance to being a man, and that doesn't mean spraying on a set of cologne, but taking care of yourself, the importance of that. And if you're not taking care of yourself, what is that a sign of? Because we spoke about internally, and I really want us for people to understand that somebody doesn't naturally just want to look like a scruff. There's something else going on there, and it's not simply a case of they're studying bigger things, because you can look at a Mark Zuckerberg, as we talk about simplicity, and, very basic shirt, black T-shirt, or white T-shirt, denim jeans.
That's it.
Right? Yeah. That's it. Right? Probably very expensive. We never know some level of silk or thread count and so on. But the fact is, what's more important? But he's still groomed. He's still looking a particular way. Right? And well, I don't know how he smells, but I'm just saying that outlook is one thing, but what about...
A man's mental health, you could always tell by the way he carry himself.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So you're saying that hygiene is tied to the mental health part?
Yeah, and I could say, anytime I reduce my level of taking care of myself, that's a red flag to me to know either maybe I'm working too much or something wrong, because the vigor that I've had to take care of myself not there anymore. Yeah. Something wrong, and I notice it too, even with clients, right? When we're doing reports for the court, you have to put a mental status exam, and in the mental status exam is how the person is groomed, and it is always correlated to their level of mental health. So again, don't have to be an expensive suit. It could still be whatever level you are, but you see, I still taking care to make sure it's neat, right? If I usually shave, then I just stop shaving just like that. If my breath usually smell good and then one day, and you notice a pattern, it's off. If you usually cutting is and you notice, when you stop taking care of yourself, I think studies show, and even my experience is a direct relation to your level of mental health.
Just like when you talk about having halitosis and things like that, you could be diabetic and you don't even know. Internal, external also represent internal. If you have, like you mentioned, the top, with regards to what foods you eat, how you're feeling, your nutrition, going to the gym, different things that you're gonna want to dress differently as a result of that. Garth, before we close and give our closing thoughts, if you could tell us a bit about, I know you have a skincare, men's grooming, like some of the products you might represent and why it can really benefit.
I think taking back to, so I appreciate that. Taking back to the look good, feel good thing, to having a new regime. Like people will take 20 minutes to get ready with their whole serum and stuff like that. I just didn't want to go that route. I think for the average person that is working every day, have a regular job, may not be a public figure, how do you make it simpler for them? And I think with all natural products like the body butter, so we have a eucalyptus body butter for men.
What's it called?
It's 2% ink. There's a story behind that, but we don't have time for all that. But with all natural products, the eucalyptus body butter is something I would use when playing football, like get home late at night. If I play indoor and I come home, I can't sleep. So I normally use a candle and let the candle, the smell will put it to sleep. So I decided to infuse that into the body butter because we already had an original one. And get it to men who I used to work with. So I ran a couple of gyms in the States there, and most of the directors or like the big, bosses would be working all the time. So I give them a couple of samples, and then they're like, "Hey, Yosh, when I get home, I get time to sleep. After I shower, I put it on." Back right down to the line of grooming. We want to make sure that men understand they don't have to take all the time to groom themselves or to take care of themselves. It could be just putting the body butter after your bath on your shoulders, where most of your stress, as men, we carry a lot of stress on our shoulders, right? That was what the product was for. We do have beard oils, and most people have the beard oils and stuff like that. I think for me, the main product for me, I would recommend to men, especially men who are constantly on the go, would be the eucalyptus body butter, just because it's all natural stuff. So there's no fragrances that you talk about spraying up on yourself. And then the benefit of it is actually that eucalyptus smell, which most people have a liking for eucalyptus because it does relax a little bit. I think, one of the reasons why I wanted to come here too, and I was appreciating you having me on here too, was that I want to be able to reach out to the average person, the average man, because a lot of the average men don't have the education to understand or don't have the resources to understand how important the things that we talked about here are. And that's why I was really happy to be on, because I realized that the conversation is something that once we consistently have it, people understand how important cutting your nails could be on a Saturday or a Sunday. Like you say, being able to groom yourself a little bit, take care of yourself, dress a little bit different. And that's one of the things that when we talk about even hygiene, we could play it down as much as we want. We out here to impress somebody at some point in time.
At some
right?
point.
At some point in time. So my thing is that a lot of the things, we don't really deal with stuff outwardly as much. So if we could literally give them something to look out to feel, and we feel better about ourselves, that confidence will branch out into conversation and communication and all these other things that we kind of break ourselves down from. Because if you walk into a room and you don't smell right, nobody wants to talk to you. If you don't take care of yourself and don't look right, nobody wants to talk to you. So therefore, if this is something that men on the whole want to change, where the perception is different of us, because when you see women, 99% of the women that we would know will take care of themselves. And they are evolving all around the men that we have here. And I keep saying it on all the conversations I have. Men are not evolving. Men are stuck in the past, and they just don't want to evolve because, I don't know, maybe it's uncomfortable. But I love to take lessons from women, because I feel as the women show you how to take care of yourself. They were the ones that tell you, go take a bath.
Very true.
Before somebody come. Those are the ones who say, hey, make sure you wash them wires in the sink before my friends come over. Right? Those are the ones that told you about Sunday best. So instead of competing, let's collaborate with them a little bit. Learn some scare things from the women, right? And I don't really like to talk about the company as much when I go to have these kind of conversations, because it's not about the company. It's about our company that we keep in. And as men in this room here who will take care of themselves, there's a lot of people out there saying, I can relate to those guys. So it's just trying to figure that out. So I think you guys are doing an awesome job. I just want to say that before you close, and to open the conversation and be consistently on it. I, as a man, appreciate it.
So before, I appreciate the fact that you didn't try to give yourself a plug, right?
Don't need that.
But at the same time, for people who are listening now, to be able to give them that easier access and to say, okay, well, where do I get it? This gentleman has just told me about all of these different things. So clearly his line is going to already speak to that. So what is a website or social media handle that they can go to?
Okay. So you can find me at I am God Voze on Instagram and on Facebook. You can find us at 2% Inc. on Instagram as well. There you'll have the link for the website to check out the products. The men's line is already on there.
2%, how you do it?
So just the 2, the number 2, the word percent and Inc.
The word percent.
Yeah, the word percent. And I'm always open to conversations. I think we need to have more conversation. Even if it's about grooming, it still helps men to feel a bit more comfortable with themselves. And that's what we're trying to talk about here. So I appreciate that, and thank you.
Appreciate that, God.
So just to, I guess, to close off my final points and kind of echoing what he was saying about men being probably afraid to evolve, I think what plays a huge factor is the social aspect of it, what we are perceived as, because we've been talking about hygiene all day and we've been talking about just overall health, right? But sometimes, now, I am not one of those people who looks at someone trying to take better care of themselves and think, oh, he's a soft person or he's not a man. But it is a conversation that happens where men who are pampering themselves maybe overly too much can be seen as softer than what is a stereotypical hard man, right? So I guess my message going out to anybody, whether you're tall, you're short, whether you're chubby or you're skinny, is to lean on your brother. A lot of times when I have been down or like Johansi would be saying, where it's a factor as to looking into your mental health as to how you groom yourself. Sometimes my brethren, my friends have came down on me and saying, yo, you have not cut your hair in a while. What's going on? You need to get to the barber.
Those are good friends.
So-
That's good friends to have.
You know, lean on your brothers, lean even on your sisters as well. They are the ones that'll tell you to keep going, even though it may be hard on your daily basis to find that 30 minutes to an hour to focus on yourself. It is important, and the knowledge that you can get all over the place. Obviously, 2% Inc. is one of the destinations, but all over the place, more and more men are being receptive and opening up and trying to get into that next stage of evolution as more and more men enter manhood. Right, pun intended. But as more and more men enter manhood, lean on your brothers.
Young Padawan.
That was good, but that was good.
Yeah.
Men, is important to love yourself, and loving yourself will take many forms. And as my brother said, it's important for us to evolve. All the things that you may think, well, like guilting or that is the only thing women do.
Use your word now, man.
When you take care of yourself, you will be surprised when you allow whether it's somebody to pamper you or you pamper yourself, how rewarding it could be. So men, open your eyes, take care of yourself, and be better.
Well said. You know, take care of yourself. Self-care, very important. Take that moment for yourself. You know, smile within, and of course, smile outside. You know, leave a room always better than you found it, and also you want to leave a room smelling better. Certainly as well, you know, because there are many senses, and we didn't really get into a lot of these senses, but, you know, people, the first thing they do is they see you, you know, and then of course smell, and then what they hear and all the rest of it, and you don't want to be left with, you know, any sort of negative impact on that person, especially, you know, where they may look at the messenger before they heed the message. So in this case, you know, from the crown of your head to the sole of your feet, make sure that you are groomed, that you're smelling good, that you're feeling good, and therefore you will be good in many senses. And you know, we say it all the time where we speak about that sense of that community, and that your community must lead you to be better and hold you accountable, hold you honest, keep you honest. So Johanse, Garth, thank you for passing through. Real pleasure. Check out 2% Inc. I will be certainly taking some advice with some oils. You know, Sarius, thanks for passing through.
As
you know, and spread the word. Let them check out Manhood, because even in your generation, they will all be men. We want them to continue being men, to move away from being boys to men in certain cases. You know. So this has been Manhood.
Manhood, brought to you in part by Reboot Sports Drink. Manhood, brought to you in part by Solomon's Bespoke.